everyone, it's Justin and Jason here, back for another Motivation Monday, and we're so excited to be with you guys today. But before we jump into our message, Jason, I want to hear from you. How's your life been this week, and any updates for us?
Yeah, actually, I last week I took the week off, so Jesse and I we had a couple of big things to celebrate. First one was our anniversary on May 1st. My birthday's on May 3rd. Her birthday's on May 5th. And then Eli's birthday is on May 9th, so on Saturday, and then obviously Mother's Day. So wanted to spend the time just to celebrate all those things. So took some time off, and actually also did some camping down by the river near where I grew up. So just a great time to slow down a little bit, relax, and spend time eating way too much cake. So it's a good week. How about you, man?
That's cool, man. That does sound like a good week. Most of you know I'm still up in New Hampshire, and actually on Saturday, we got some snow. We got like a tiny dusting. It was just like 1 inch, but snow in May, that's, I guess it's all right. I don't know. I don't really want snow once it's May. Bring on the nice weather. But anyways, been doing a lot of just hanging out, playing ping pong with my brother, getting pretty good at ping pong, and watching TV, old reruns of Shark Tank and whatever else is on these days. So staying busy around the house, and obviously had a good time yesterday celebrating Mother's Day with my family. So yeah, it's been a good week.
Sweet, man. That's awesome. Well, today we're going to finish up our series, Overcomer, where we've been looking at the book of 2 Timothy that Paul wrote to Timothy to encourage him to be an overcomer. So if you haven't watched any of the previous weeks, I encourage you, binge watch it. I mean, I think it's pretty good. I'm just saying. Netflix has got nothing on us. These videos are meant to motivate you and encourage you to grow in your faith, and I hope they've done that so far. So if you haven't, go check them out, and we'll be finishing the series today.
Yeah, that's right. It's week 4, and so naturally we're going to be in 2 Timothy chapter 4, the final chapter of this book, and so I'm excited to jump into it and read it together with you guys. So let's do that now. We're going to be in 2 Timothy chapter 4, and to start off, I'm going to read verses 2 through 5 for us. So Paul starts off by saying this: "Preach the word, be prepared in season and out of season, correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instructions. For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. But you, keep your head in all situations, endure hardship, do the work of an evangelist, and discharge all the duties of your ministry." So I love that verse. As we've shared a couple times as we've been going through this series, a lot of scholars believe this is one of Paul's last letters. And so this is chapter 4 of the book, and he's really giving some personal encouragement to Timothy. And verse 2 is what I want to focus on today, because that phrase just really stood out to me, where he says, "Preach the word and be prepared in season and out of season." And when I hear that phrase, in season and out of season, you know me, I like sports. So immediately my brain goes to kind of relating that to athletes. And I kind of relate it to this situation we're going through now with basketball players and baseball players. They don't know when the NBA is going to start up again, and they don't know when the MLB is going to start their season. And so these players, they're all sitting at home right now, just like I'm doing, just like Jason's doing, and just like you're doing watching the video. All these professional athletes, they're stuck at home. And while they're at home, they're kind of faced with two options, right? They can either just kick back on a recliner and just spend time eating junk food all the time, filling up on Pringles. That might be what they're doing, but probably not, right? I would like to imagine that our favorite athletes like LeBron James or the best baseball player, Mike Trout, I bet they're hitting the gym like every day, right? Like they are waiting. They're lifting up weights and stuff. I got me a nice little dumbbell here, 15 pounds. It's not too heavy because I haven't been working out and I didn't want to be embarrassed and not be able to lift it on screen. But I bet these athletes, they're sitting at home getting ready for this season because they don't know when the season's going to start up again. It could be a month from now. It could be 2 months from now. But I bet they're not just waiting and thinking, oh, I'll just train when I get the phone call. No, when they get the phone call that the season's going to start up again, They want to hit the ground running. And so I want to relate this back to us as Christians and back to this phrase that Paul uses here, to be prepared in season and out of season. What would it look like for us as Christians to be ready to share our faith? You know, we all have this time period where, like I said, we are spending a little more time at home. And so I'd encourage you to take this time to understand what you believe and why you believe it. And so when the moment arises where you have the opportunity to share hope to someone else, you're able to do that with confidence. And another verse I love comes from 1 Peter 3, verse 15. It says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. Be prepared to share the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. And finally, just to close out 2 Timothy chapter 4, Paul uses this phrase. He says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. We've talked so many times about Paul, how he has struggles and trials and tribulations that probably a lot of us, like, we can't even compare to what he's gone through. But yet through this, he was able to say, I have fought the good fight and I've persevered. I've kept the faith. And so that's the encouragement I want to extend to you guys this week is keep persevering, keep going, and together we can overcome whatever stands in our path.
I like that a lot. I think that's a great word to hear and to act on. And for me, I mean, I do like this Pringles though. I'm not gonna lie to this.
I'm not gonna lie. I ate the whole can before I held it up to the screen, so they're gone now.
All right, I guess I won't have Pringles then. But yeah, so it's definitely a good word, and obviously we don't want to just hear the word. We want to be doers of the word and to act them out. So for us, we got a couple next steps that we're thinking about, and we hope it's helpful for you as you go into this week. But the first thing is, especially around this idea of being an overcomer, so that's really what Paul is talking about throughout this letter to Timothy. And the first thing is this, is that overcomers are prepared to share the good news. He said again, overcomers are prepared to share the good news, right? So that was in verse 2, he says, preach the word, be prepared in season and out of season, all right? Just like Justin was talking about, it's important for us to always be ready and to do the things we need to do to be ready instead of just eating Pringles. For me, though, I really want to focus on that word preach. Sometimes we just hear that word and we think, all right, preaching is only the person who's got a microphone on the stage, who's a pastor on Sunday morning. And I think that's a very limited view of what preaching the word is really about, sharing the good news. Like Justin said, the hope that we have in Jesus. So for me, I think especially with what Paul was talking about is they didn't have microphones back then. It wasn't exactly what we see church as now, or just preaching. Preaching was meant to be anytime you get the opportunity to share the gospel with someone. And so it's important for us to always be ready for that. In this unique season we're in, a lot of people are struggling, looking for hope. And we get to be people of hope and share that encouragement, that hope that we have, right? Josh had talked about this, Pastor Josh, on Sunday. He used this phrase that we should be people of hope, right? So there'd be something that should distinguish us from those who do not have hope. And what? That is our hope in Jesus. That even when times are difficult, even though when things don't always make sense or we don't understand why things are going on, what we do know and we can trust, we have hope in, is his word and his promises for us. And so for us, we should be always preaching the word, sharing the hope that we have in with the people in our lives. And as they're talking, as they're struggling, we can be able to speak into that and share, like, I get that's tough. And yeah, this is a really difficult time we're all in, but you know what? I'm finding hope in this season through the God that I love and serve, and you can too. And so we should always be prepared for that, listening for that when there's an opportunity, and asking God to help give us wisdom on when to share that.
That's right.
So overcomers, just like he's saying, overcomers prepared to share the good news.
Yeah, that's really good. Always being prepared in season and out of season. And the second point I have for us is that overcomers persevere in the race. I'll say that again. Overcomers persevere in the race. And so as we've talked about so many times, Paul, yes, he went through hardships, but Paul was also a guy who left this great legacy. He led so many people to Christ. He was bold, sharing his faith, and showed courage in so many situations. And as he went from church to church and wrote them all letters, he was always encouraging Christians. And so that's the legacy that Paul left. And so for you watching this video right now, I would ask the question, what legacy do you want to leave? You know, what is that legacy? Do you just want to be the coolest kid at your school, or the best video game player, or have 1,000 Instagram followers? You know, some of those things might seem good on the surface, but I bet deep down, all of us want to leave a legacy that's much deeper than that. We want to live a life like Paul did, and like Jesus did, more importantly, where we're being bold in our faith and we're not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so if you want to leave that legacy, this starts by persevering in the race, like Paul said. And when you think of a race isn't won all of a sudden out of nowhere, right? A race is won one step at a time. And so leaving a legacy requires thoughtful steps. You know, every day you're committed to what God has called you to do. And so I would ask you the question, what legacy do you want to leave?
I love that question. That, you know, gets me thinking, you know, what kind of legacy, and, you know, we definitely, I don't know about you guys, but I want to make an impact on other people's lives. That's what I want to be known for. That's what Paul's known for. And so it's a great question to think about. And the next point kind of is something that's very helpful and practical in order for us to make that impact, to make a great legacy, leave a great legacy. So, and that's this, that overcomers rely on God's strength. Overcomers rely on God's strength, right? Timothy, or Paul is sharing all this stuff to Timothy. And as we're finishing up, you know, this letter that he wrote, he says in verse 16, he's kind of, again, addressing the situation, like Paul's in prison, you know, he's having to go to these court cases, and he says this: at my first defense or trial case, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed, and all the Gentiles might hear it. And I was delivered from the lion's mouth. So I love this passage because he's really highlighting the fact that, like, all right, all the people he felt like he could rely on that time, a lot of the other Christians, they didn't come to help him out. They weren't there for him when the going was tough and he was, you know, in prison because they were afraid. You know, they're afraid of what the Romans were going to do to him. And yet, but he says, you know what? Even though he couldn't find any strength from those people, he was able to find strength in God, and strength that was that he found in God's presence, and it helped him persevere and get through the difficult times in his life. And because of that, left an amazing legacy for so many other people. And so for us, the encouragement to remember is that, you know, even when life is difficult, we don't know how we're going to get through it. And it's just important to remember that we need to rely on his strength. So whatever you're facing, whatever obstacle it is, whether it's something you're struggling with internally, and insecurity, or just difficult circumstances, things not going your way, rely on God's strength, knowing that he will see you through it. That's what overcomers do. That's what overcomers, they are able to see their obstacle and get through it because they're not relying on their own strength, they're relying on God's strength. So overcomers, they rely on God's strength.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's just a great point to really wrap up our whole series. And hopefully, as we've been going through this book of 2 Timothy together, you've been encouraged and motivated. And as we close out, just be reminded of that truth. We can rely on God's strength, and together we can overcome whatever we're facing. You know, these are difficult times. I don't think a single one of us would say this has been super easy for us, and we've all had our unique challenges, but when we rely on God's strength, we can overcome all of that. And so thank you so much just for joining us through this series. And we have a new series that we're starting next week, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, we got student groups coming up this week.
That's right. Yep. Middle school is Tuesday nights at 7. High school is Thursday nights at 7 on Zoom. So we'd love to see you there, connect, and overcome this unique season we're in together. So we hope this is motivational for you as you go into your week. You guys take care. Have a good one.
See you guys.